Chapter 15 Freya's Door. Despite their jokes, both Requiem and Freya were confident that Urasil would pull through for them, no matter how long it took, and both were lying on their backs in the main entrance, quietly waiting for the next door to open. Havoc was equally at ease as the sleepy kitten let his head gently rise and fall on Freya's stomach as she breathed. Suddenly, the door next in line sprang open, causing Requiem and Freya to bolt to their feet, whilst Havoc's lightning reactions sent him halfway across the room in fright. Regaining some composure, Havoc sauntered back coolly, cutely bouncing on his toes to Freya. "What are we going to do?" asked Freya, shaking her head at Havoc, letting him know that she could see through his ruse. "What do you mean? Whose go is it next?" "Yes, but I was thinking about Havoc. If only one can pass through the door at a time, it will mean leaving him here." Picking Havoc up off the floor and passing him to Freya, Requiem replied, "You're right, which is why you are both going to go next." Startled, Freya pulled back from Requiem. "I can't do that. You'll be left here alone in the darkness with them." Freya gestured over to the writhing hordes waiting in the shadows, chattering to one another. Their eagerness for Requiem's plan was clear. Requiem put his hands in his pockets and span on his heels, turning back to Freya with a smile. "I would be more worried for them than I would for me. Now, off with you," he said cheerily. Requiem started to hurry Freya towards the open door. When almost at the door, Freya dug her heels in to stop them both. She turned to Requiem with a stern look tempered by a soft smile. "Take care of yourself, okay?" she said as she gently caressed the side of Requiem's face. She knew that he'd be all right. After all, who apart from Akuma could even put a scratch on Requiem? That didn't stop her longing that he didn't have to be put in danger, however, or from wishing she could have peace of mind that he'd be always the bright, cheery Requiem and not the vengeful instrument of destruction he could so easily turn into. Reading her eyes, Requiem held Freya's hand to his face and tried to dismiss these thoughts with a smile, showing that even vengeful Requiem could be bright and cheery. "Don't worry. Knowing that you have Havoc sets my mind at ease. I'll be fine." Gesturing to the hordes with a backwards nod of his head, he added, "We'll just have a male bonding session, with plenty of slapping each other on the back and belching. You won't be missing much." "If it will make you happy," she conceded, knowing that this was a battle she could not, and perhaps did not want, to win. As she turned to go through the door, she added buoyantly, "But I want to see you still looking sharp once I've completed my task." Holding Havoc close to her chest, Freya walked through the open door. It slammed shut harder than the others had before, blowing out the last of the light in the entrance. To shrill cries, Requiem turned to face the hordes in the darkness. "Come on!" he yelled, as his fists began to glow with rage. On the other side of the door, Freya closed her eyes. Taking a deep breath, she prayed she had made the right decision to bring Havoc in with her. She put him down slowly, whereupon he immediately scampered off along the rocky ledge, giving a croaky, fearful meow. Freya held out her hand to stop him, but lost her footing on the loose stone. As she began to slip, everything went into slow motion. She could see that she was about to fall down a dark ravine with no apparent end. But, as if she had magnetized the black rock of the cavern, she flew back instead and stuck firmly to the rock wall. From here, she attempted to assess the situation. It was clear to Freya that she could barely move left or right from her current position. Opposite her, there appeared to be an equally unforgiving mountain of black rock, with a similar ledge and small cave. It was possible the cave held a door like the one she had arrived through, but there appeared to be no way to get across, just remnants of a stone bridge. Peeling herself off the wall, Freya walked over to the edge of the ledge and peered down tentatively. Wow, not even night is as unforgiving. I wonder what we have to do, she said aloud. A deep, growling voice rumbled from behind. We should not be here. This is wrong. Startled, Freya span around. From the shadows emerged a humanized tiger. She stood frozen to the spot, both frightened and amazed. She had nowhere to run, even if she wanted to, and attacking this man-tiger hybrid, which stood nearly as tall as a Kuma, didn't seem like an option either. A gust of wind rushed along the ravine, causing the tiger's torn blue waistcoat to blow open. This revealed a necklace of large brown-red wooden beads, which grew in size as they reached the centre bead, which was the largest of all. Freya gazed down at his matching torn blue trousers, held up by a piece of old rope, before staring at the large, curved black claws on his very human-looking feet. Very human, that was, apart from the fact that he had dense fur instead of skin. The second gust of wind angered him and prompted a chilling snarl, but by now Freya was more fascinated than fearful. "Hey, Havoc, is that you?" Freya stared into his large, yet familiar-looking blue cat's eyes. "Yes," he growled. Composing herself, Freya walked up to Havoc and touched his muscular torso. "How?" she asked, looking up at Havoc's face. "I am an immortal of the Avatars Guild. How we came into being I cannot tell you. What I can say is that I am Havoc, and I protect Akatsuki in peril." Havoc put a muscular clawed hand on Freya's shoulder. "There are more like me, each with our own duties to dispense throughout the course of Akatsuki life, and each taking varying forms of common earth animals. It allows us to traverse the world with relative ease. Although I must agree with Gio," he said with a woeful smile, as he gently shook his head, "a penguin in sub-Saharan Africa is going a little far." Looking up at the intractable mountain before them, he lamented, "Although we could really do with Pathfinder's help right now." Putting her hand on Havoc's, Freya asked, "Pathfinder? That's the name of the penguin we saw. Could Requiem understand him? Is that why he followed the penguin?" "We can all speak many languages, but, yes, Requiem could understand Pathfinder without him needing to speak conventionally. Your friend is strong indeed, which is why you shouldn't worry that he has been left in the darkness." Smiling up at Havoc, Freya thanked him. "That's good, as long as he's going to be okay." Casting his gaze around the ravine, Havoc growled, "Indeed. It is us you should be concerned for now, as we have well and truly broken the rules, and the Inquisitor is not happy." Looking down at the ground, a cold feeling of disgrace coursed through Freya's veins. "Oh, sorry. How do you know he isn't happy? The Inquisitor, I mean." "Because he too is an immortal of the Avatars Guild. He is the elephant. It is his task to collect all worldly knowledge and pass it on to Akatsuki, who are deemed worthy. For our insolence, he has broken the bridge that would have led you to your task." Freya's eyes welled with tears. Putting his finger under her chin and raising her head with his heavy claw, Havoc spoke as softly as he could. "Don't worry. It's my fault, really. I should not have come through the door with you, but I wanted to make sure you were safe. Given that you are really now in peril, and it is my job to help those in such circumstances, the Inquisitor has no choice but to let us play on." Tapping his large clawed foot on the ground, Havoc thought aloud, "Now, what we need is a way out. But which path to take? The old game is off, and I don't know the new one." From high above them, some small stones fell about their feet. "Did I hear somebody say they are lost?" called a shrill yet friendly voice. With a deep chuckle, Havoc looked up. "Pathfinder, you old rebel, you!" Clinging to the rock face above them was the penguin they had seen before, but he too was now in a more human form. It appeared, however, that no immortal of the Avatar's guild was small. Pathfinder was equally as towering and muscular as Havoc, albeit much smarter in his long grey trouser shorts. Noticing Freya studying him closely, Pathfinder preened the dense white plumage on his front, before turning awkwardly to reach his back, causing more stones to fall. "Stop it, you big bird brain. Excellent plumage cannot hide the fact that you are a bird that cannot fly," remarked Havoc, tiring of Pathfinder's posing. Ignoring this, Pathfinder called down to them, "As I see it, technically, you have an Akatsuki who is lost. Be it physically or metaphorically, if there is a lost Akatsuki, it is my duty to show him or her the way." Freya looked up at Pathfinder, grateful tears replacing those of self-loathing. She called back, "Oh, thank you so much." "Don't mention it. I like how you waddle anyhow. Now, wipe away those tears. You have 2 immortals by your side. This way." Pathfinder climbed a little way, urging the others to follow. Freya looked up at the steep and ragged rock face and wondered how well she'd be able to climb. This was a fleeting concern as, before her eyes, Havoc changed into a giant tiger and roared. "Climb on my back. I will carry you. It will be a long way to the top." Freya leapt onto Havoc. Walking up to the rocky face, he called to Pathfinder, "You'd better not be afraid of heights, you flightless bird." "Just don't be coughing a furball. Now, come on." Freya lay on her front, hands gripping tightly onto Havoc's thick fur as they started their ascent. Intermittently, Pathfinder dropped small rocks into Havoc's path, causing Havoc to snarl back up at him. Now and again, Freya looked down, only to be struck with severe vertigo and bury her head back into Havoc's fur. "Stupid bird," Havoc muttered as a flat rock hit his snout. "This whole pathfinding isn't difficult. Just go up. Seems simple enough." "Not that way," shouted Pathfinder, looking down at them both. Havoc had not been paying attention and had veered over to the left. His paws met with loose stone, and he slipped. "Whoa, that was close," said Havoc as he steadied himself. "Sorry about that." Shaking his head dismissively, Pathfinder continued, with Havoc now following a little more attentively. "One of these days, Havoc, you're really going to do yourself a mischief." Freya lifted her head out of Havoc's fur. "But you're immortal, right? It wouldn't matter if you fell." With a growling grunt, Havoc replied, "There's no telling what lies at the bottom of that ravine. I could be impaled on a spike, have all my bones shattered, or even have a large boulder crush me. I wouldn't die, but I could be stuck for an eternity. Not a pleasant fate, I'm sure you'll agree." "Don't worry, you big lug. I'll find you. Whoops! Not that way," called Pathfinder as he adjusted course. "Like I said, I could be stuck for an eternity." Havoc looked back at Freya despairingly. A long time passed, and yet no task had made itself known. They were now several hundred feet from where they had begun, and Havoc noticed Freya looking down. The height was unsettling, and Freya gripped even tighter. Closing her eyes, she called up to Pathfinder, "Is it much further?" "How should I know?" "You're the Pathfinder, right? Shouldn't you know where you're going?" "Not necessarily. I just cut the path. I don't always know where it will end, or how long it will take. Besides, the Inquisitor can keep on raising the roof for an eternity if he wants to. I just know that we've got to go up. So up we keep going until something changes." Burying her head back into Havoc, Freya's muffled voice called out, "If this Inquisitor can keep on moving the goalpost, we may never reach the end. Why? Why would he do this?" In a soft voice for him, Havoc tried to explain. "He needs you to learn something. None of us knows what it is, but you haven't learned it yet, or the task would be done." Forgetting herself, Freya sat upright and hit Havoc's back in anger. "Then why doesn't he give us a clue?" Freya was a whirl of emotion. She was so happy to be with Havoc and Pathfinder, so grateful that they wanted to help. At the same time, she was so sad that she had got them into this in the first place, and angry that she felt so helpless, even though, in the end, she was the only one who could change things. As she wiped away her tears, Freya heard Pathfinder call out in alarm. "Below!" "What?" called Havoc as he looked up. Too late. A large angular rock dove for Havoc, hitting him squarely on the chest. The blow left Havoc hanging on with his two right paws. Apart from the pounding pain in his chest, Havoc could feel that something else was not quite right. He could feel rock against his back. "Freya!" he yelled. Looking below, Havoc could see that Freya had been knocked free and was holding onto the rock face with her fingertips. Her large burgundy eyes were open wide with fright, staring deep into Havoc's. "Dive to your right!" she shouted as more large rocks plummeted. Havoc growled and snarled at the rocks as they fell in an effort to pull them away from Freya's path, but to no avail. After the dust had cleared, all that remained of Freya was a desperate scream. "No!" roared Havoc as he turned to face the ravine and slid down the rock face after her. "There's a smoother route to your left," called Pathfinder as he scampered down the mountain after them. Havoc changed course, building up immense speed as he rushed down, looking for any sign of Freya. Pathfinder stopped mid-descent and thought for a moment. "Oh, wait," he said to himself. "That path leads to an overhang. Havoc!" Pathfinder's cries would do Havoc no good now. He was sliding too fast to stop, even if he could hear beyond all the flying rubble. Havoc's eyes widened as he realised he was about to meet the overhang. A great bellowing snarl echoed around the ravine as Havoc flew into the air and started to freefall on his way down to find what lay in the deep. "Change into a kitten!" cried a voice in the darkness. "Freya!" Havoc growled. He did not question a moment longer and put his faith in Freya as he shrank back into kitten form and continued to freefall. He did not have far to go before he heard Freya's voice again. "There you go, much better, travel size," Freya said brightly as she caught Havoc and carried on flying up to meet Pathfinder. Pounding the rock in despair, Pathfinder was chastising himself. "Why? What kind of guiding light am I when all I do is direct them to an overhang? I'm useless as a Pathfinder, and I'm useless as a bird. I can't even fly." "Just as well I can," Freya said triumphantly as she flew up behind Pathfinder. Pathfinder did not turn around. "No, you can't. Why evil voices? Why do you torment me so?" "No, really, I can. Ask Havoc," replied Freya, holding the tiny kitten form of the mighty tiger towards Pathfinder. Havoc gave a tiny meow, and Pathfinder turned around. "You're alive!" he said in rapture, letting go of the rock face. Pathfinder paddled his way back to the rocks and held them both tightly before pointing at Freya and speaking sharply. "You! Information that would have been handy hours ago!" Pointing to Havoc, Pathfinder continued. "And you! What'd you call that? That was a pathetic roar!" Holding Havoc close and stroking him, Freya replied in a cute voice. "Oh, I think it's sweet. Yes, I do. Besides, I didn't know if Lygaze's hug was going to work, nor what it was going to do. He didn't even know what it would do, and he's a transmutor." Looking around in alarm, Freya leaned close to Pathfinder and Havoc. "Just don't tell anyone, okay? Lygaze is a good man and should not be isolated with those freaks." This was all too much for Pathfinder, who casually waved his hand upwards and prompted them to continue. "The end shouldn't be far now. Just fly up there and I'll join you." Freya flew for a short while and landed on a perfectly smooth, round plateau. It was as if a samurai had neatly cut the top off a mountain sitting in a black void. "Did you hear that?" Freya asked Havoc, who was still in her arms. "Sounds like the sea." Jumping out of Freya's embrace and turning back into his humanized form, Havoc said, "Sounds more like that breathless, wheezing bird to me." Havoc walked over to the edge grabbing Pathfinder's grasping hand and pulling him to the top. "Now, who's supposed to be helping whom, huh?" asked Havoc jokingly as Pathfinder preened himself. "If it wasn't for my advice that sent you hurtling into the ravine, you would still be climbing. So I still say I've done you a favour. What do you think, Freya?" "Freya?" Freya paid them no attention as she was drawn inextricably to the middle of the plateau, where she had spied a sun lounger sitting on a red rug, complete with small table holding a magazine and a cool orange juice. "If any port in a storm will do, any sun lounger in a dark and unforgiving void will do too, I suppose," she said cheerily, as she sat down on the lounger and opened the magazine. As she did so, brilliant sunshine beamed in from every direction. The plateau changed into a beach resort, with Freya's sun lounger sitting next to a beautiful pool. A gentle breeze caressed the air, making the palm trees rustle. Freya miniaturized her clothes, put on some sunglasses, sipped her orange juice, and made herself comfortable. Havoc and Pathfinder looked at each other. "Cannonball!" they shouted in unison as they ran for the pool. Freya calmly materialized a large sun umbrella to protect herself from the tidal waves of crashing water coming from the ensuing madness. As she lay there, contented, thanks to her new friends, and knowing she can fly, a voice rang out, "Congratulations!